A weird thing happened a bit over a decade ago when my friends and I all started having babies. A lot of them, out of the blue, went and bought a Subaru Forester. It's like they all read the same parenting book that said you must have a Forester to bring home your newborn from the hospital. My wife and I looked at each other and thought we must have picked up the wrong book because all we had was a Mitsubishi Lancer. So that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to uncover the appeal of the Subaru Forester for new parents. The Forester has grown a bit in the 25 years it's been on our roads. What started as a high-riding station wagon has now morphed into a small SUV. And while there's no mistaking it for anything other than a Subaru, it's still a really good-looking design, but maybe just starting to look a little bit dated. The front end of this 5th generation model looks just a little bit squashed to me. It looks like it's pouting a little bit because we've got this very flat front here and the front grille is kind of squashed in a bit, and it's the same with these headlights. In profile you can see that this car does indeed ride up quite high, which gives you a good amount of clearance for when you head off-road. Style-wise, I really like this line that swoops the length of the car and heads upwards there at the rear window. We've got 18-inch alloy wheels that look pretty good, and this nice textured plastic trim that extends up over the wheel arches looks really good too. The back of the Subaru is what parents will get most excited about because underneath the powered tailgate here is a 498 litre storage space, which you can easily double with the rear seats down. You just flick this button here and down they drop. We've got a cargo blind, anchor points to tie things down with, a nice flat floor for easy loading. Underneath that, there's a little bit more storage space and also a full-sized spare tyre. In the engine bay, we've got a bit of room, and that's mainly owing to Subaru's Boxer engine design that places the cylinders horizontally rather than vertically. There's also no turbocharger in here, so we've got a naturally aspirated 2.5 litre 4-cylinder engine that outputs 136 kilowatts of power and 239 newton meters of torque, which is perfectly adequate for around town. Just don't try and drag a Ford Escape off at the lights because you're probably not going to win that one. It is, however, very efficient, just 7.4 litres per 100 kilometres on a combined cycle. The interior of the Forester is very nice, very comfortable, it's very well made, and it's also very cluttered. There are buttons everywhere, where most car makers are putting more and more functionality into centre console screens to minimise the number of physical buttons. Subaru seem to be going in the opposite direction, and it's almost overwhelming. And there's buttons in weird places too, like up here on the ceiling. The button for the lane keep assist and the collision avoidance assist are both up here. That's strange. And just to add to the confusion, there are actually 2 centre console screens here in the Forester. The top one has various display options and you can cycle through various bits of drive information, and it also acts as a display for a couple of the cameras around the outside of the car, which really do help when you're parking. The lower screen is your more typical centre console touch screen. I don't particularly love the way it works, but it's fine. It is, however, extremely sensitive to the touch. You know how when you use your iPhone, it can generally tell the difference between an accidental touch and you doing something deliberately? Well, this screen is just super sensitive. It picks up on anything and it is really fast, so it's easy to make a mistake with it. Also included is Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, although you will need a USB cable to use them. And the whole system is connected to a Harman Kardon sound system with a subwoofer in the back. That actually all sounds pretty good. And unique to Subaru, I don't know of any other car maker who still does this, there is a CD player. Some old school climate controls underneath that, and then we've got a storage space for your phone, which is tiny. I mean, my phone is not very big and it barely fits in there. No wireless charging, but there are 2 USB outlets in there as well as a 12-volt outlet. Centre console, we've got heated seat controls, X-Mode drive controls for snow and dirt or deep snow and mud. In Australia, probably not very useful to be honest, but X-Mode is great. Cup holders with a removable divider in between them, a little storage tray for your coins perhaps, and another one underneath the armrest here, which also reveals a deep but not very big centre console bin and a nice soft leather armrest on top of that. No head-up display, but instead we do have a row of LEDs here, and I think the Outback actually had a similar arrangement to this, where they light up when you're on the freeway driving at speed to warn you if you're drifting in your lane. We've got a hybrid analog digital instrument cluster with another screen in between them, so that's 3 screens in here which show you a lot of information. Some of it can be displayed on multiple screens at the same time, so there really is a fair amount of potential driver information overload in this car. The steering wheel has a nice leather wrap with stitching. It's got a lot more buttons on it, and also paddles should you wish to change gears manually. Moving down the console, and you know how there's often blanked out buttons here on the right hand side by your knee just to remind you of options that your car doesn't have? Well, that's not the case here in the Forester, because all of those are taken up. We've got another 8 buttons and switches here. We've got more buttons here on the armrest for the windows and the mirrors, plus position memory for the driver's seat. Speaking of seats, they are very comfortable. Nice soft leather, there's heating, and the seating position is high but pretty good. There's no lumbar support, unfortunately, which I do find a little bit odd for a car that's designed to travel long distances, but I do have a really good view out the front here. You can see right to the front of the bonnet, great view through the rear vision mirror. We've got good visibility from the wing mirrors too, and nice big windows in the rear, so I've got good visibility in the blind spots as well. And the back seat of the Forester. Well, it feels firmer than it does at the front, and also higher up, and I can tell straight away I don't have a lot of headroom because my head is touching the ceiling liner here. Plenty of knee room though. I'm behind my own seating position. I'm 190 centimeters tall and nowhere near the seat in front. This is good. Plenty of foot room too. Not too high transmission tunnel there, so we could actually quite easily fit 3 adults back here fairly comfortably. For the kids, all important USB ports back here to keep their devices charged. We've got 2 air vents, which are great for long road trips. We do have some blanked out buttons here though that look like they might be for a separate zone of climate control that's not featured in this car, unfortunately. There's also an armrest with 2 cup holders. In terms of how the Subaru Forester handles the bumps on this slightly not so great patch of Sydney road, pretty well actually. There's a good amount of smoothness as we go over these bumps here. I'm not really feeling too much at all. I remember doing this in a, going down this stretch of road in a Hyundai i30N a few weeks ago, and I nearly felt like my back was about to break, and that is definitely not the case here. Despite having a petrol engine, it does get a little bit noisy and a bit throaty when you put your foot down, but my son commented the other day that he thought that this might have actually been an electric car because it was so quiet. It does feel quite overwhelming in this cabin though, just because there are so many buttons and so much going on, and it's a shame that this car hasn't inherited the Outback's giant center console screen that looked like something that they'd just taken straight out of a Tesla, because that actually works really, really well, and it incorporates so many of the car's functions, whereas here we've got the split screens, we've got separate climate controls, separate audio system controls. It's just, there's a lot going on. Despite not being turbocharged though, there is a really good level of performance from this naturally aspirated engine. I'm not really missing the turbo, and I remember when I reviewed the Outback last year, there are a lot of comments both for and against having a turbo in it. I felt that it was a little underpowered. This one, despite not having a turbo, doesn't seem to have that same issue. There's an adequate amount of power. Another cool function that is, I think, unique to Subaru is the driver recognition system, and that's a little laser scanner that just sits on top of this top screen here and actually scans your face every time you get in the car. So you can set up your own profile and everything is set up the way you like it, which is quite unique. The other thing the system does is actually driver fatigue monitoring. So if you appear to be becoming tired or fatigued, the system will send up an alert here on the screen in front of you telling you to keep your eyes on the road. The steering is a bit on the numb side. There's just not a lot of feedback. It's not the worst, but I have felt better. Just a little more firmness there would be good. So in terms of being able to move your family comfortably around town, the Forester is really good for that. There's 3 drive modes available. There's the normal mode, and then there are 2 alternate modes of snow and dirt and deep snow and mud. And basically these systems adjust the way that the car delivers traction to all 4 wheels, helping you get out of any sticky situations you might get into off-road. Would you want to take the Forester on a long family road trip? Yeah, sure, absolutely. It's really comfortable in here. Actually, these leather seats, some of the softest that I've felt lately. No lumbar support though, that's the only mark against them. But there is plenty of room for the whole family. We've got USB charging in the back, roof racks on the roof, plenty of storage space in the boot. There's a lot to like here. Dropping my son off at school during the week in the morning lineup of SUVs, the Subaru Forester fit right in. There was nothing to make it stand out from the crowd whatsoever. At $49,000, the Subaru Forester really does tick all the boxes for most modern families. I mean, it gives you all of the practicality you need during the week to move you and your family's gear around town, and then should you wish to go and do some light to medium off-roading on the weekend, the capability is there. And yeah, it looks a little bit old school, but that's part of its charm. And there's really no mistaking it for anything other than a Subaru.